Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, Thursday morning, June 60th, 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention a contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you are the make it your business to enhance and fortify this wonderful concept called public access. This morning is here with us Mariah Keolani
hmm Yeah.
with us, one of the participating artists here with the group art show that's actually, as we speak, is already on the walls with an opening reception coming this Saturday, June 8th, between 4 and 7. So we're happy to have Mariah. Just wanted to mention that we actually never met. We met once, so it's business as usual. As long as I don't know the person, a guaranteed success in terms of interacting and conversing. I definitely want you to give us a little summary about who Mariah is. But in addition to that, my reservation about the kind of energy, the kind of things that I gathered from the short interaction here and there speak volume for essence and depth and that which is spiritual, that which is emotional, that which is religious, that which is so many messages carried within that one sense of motion forward that I feel from you, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss some, if not all, of the. So the screen is yours.
Okay. Yeah, those actually really encapsulate me very well. I teach Kundalini yoga. I practice and meditate every day. I'm very connected to spirituality. And I practice the healing arts, and also I use art as a form of art therapy. And I've worked with children for a long time too. So the work on display right now is definitely influenced by children. Yeah, it's been it's been a really cool process to learn how to completely let go and just not like with kids it's like you just let them, you have to rein them in, and with adults you have to encourage them to make stuff. So I'm like, okay, what happens if I just completely let go and no reining in or anything? And so that's been a big part of my process, which is so different from my earlier work that is very less abstract and very precise, almost Renaissance vibes and detailed and everything. So yeah, it's a
So,
little bit.
so what is it that still stands in our way, trying to imitate kids or trying to look like them, act like them, create like them? What is it that really stands and speaks for our adulthood as opposed to what we're trying to do resemble their energy?
I mean, so everything goes back to. I mean, that's the essence of any like spiritual literature. Is like you need to play, you need the innocence, you need the essence. And I think of children because I've worked with like really young kids too, and they're kind of my favorite because they're the closest thing to like creation. Like they're the closest thing to like the beginning of life.
To the
And so they're
prototype.
pure creation, they're pure imagination. The only way to communicate with them is through imagination and creativity. Like if you say don't do that, it doesn't work. If you say, "Oh, I heard that the fairies don't want you to do that right now," then they're like, "Oh, wait, the fairy," like, you can create a whole story for them, and they really learn on like storylines and dramatic play and like the essence of creation. And so I think that is a core theme in human consciousness through time. And like if you even go into the healing arts and everything, it's like theatrical, dramatic play, all this stuff has been a form of healing people too, recreating stories, making fables, fairy tales. So I thought that was really interesting how
Yeah,
they operate.
and it's interesting how we trying to recapture that innocence that in my eyes, because I worked with kids, not as young as you work with, and there was always something that was missing due to that which they lost on the behalf of that ignorance of the system itself, because they think that okay, every 3-year-old can do things that major artists fully established cannot even begin to think to do that. Why are we not mindful of that? Why are we not protective of that in terms of preserving it? Why are we not looking deeper into what is it that we can do in order to make sure that they grow with these skills, and these skills should not be a given that they will disappear? So apropos trying to recapture that innocence, it's interesting how we cannot tell them what to do because it will be the almost like shooting ourselves in the foot by doing so. We kind of more like want to give them their respect, but still remind ourselves that they're still kids.
Yeah.
So how do we baby them while we give them the proper respect?
Okay. Can you rephrase some of that? Because I feel like there was a multiple
Yeah, it
phrase.
is a
Okay.
multiple.
Yeah. Like, where
You
do I
pick
go
and
with this?
choose what you want to answer. No, but I
Um,
mean,
are you talking about structure or
no, no. I'm,
flow?
I'm I'm talking about
Okay.
recapturing that innocence. What
Yeah.
does it entail?
Like recapturing a child's
The innocence
innocence
that
or your own?
you want to adapt to yourself, to be
Okay.
like at that age, to be like them, and to actualize it as an artist in front of the canvas.
It feels like pure joy. And it's yeah, I think it's just joy because innocence isn't really thinking about like the heavy or the dark things, right? It's kind of just like, oh, like what can I do now? Or this feels good here. And it's very intuitive. I think a lot of the art's intuitive that way because um it's just like, oh well, now I feel like doing blue, and it starts to create a story on the canvas. You can look at the things and you see elements or almost like the psycho like the psyche of like a child in these elements in ways because it's just like, oh, this circle kind of represents this thing, or this like basic shapes can kind of represent a lot more. um and yeah, it kind of gets back to like the basis of what is art, what's like the human conscious or psyche of like these basic shapes and forms, and how does that represent emotions and feelings and stories on canvas, like what is storytelling. So that's how I view that. But recapturing the innocence for me is definitely like it feels like play and it feels like joy. Yeah.
Okay,
Like
that
pure
sounds
emotion. Yeah.
pretty delicious, but and but sometimes we want to protect our achievements as adults,
Hmm.
because it's all about when you become mindful of the process itself. At a certain age, you're not bothered by it, but when you get to a point where you start becoming mindful of that, then these factors are not things that can just go away because you want them to go away, and sometimes you just don't want them around because you want to change and you want to break through. You're yearning, and at this stage of our lives we yearn for that kind of breakthroughs, and that soft age that we're talking about want to have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
A, because they're not aware of it, of its existence, and B, it's because it goes against all the basic grains of that kind of purity. So how do A, maintain that status quo, and B, uh, interact on the behalf of it?
Okay. I think like this kind of gets a little bit into like structure, right? Because there's certain things like, okay, I don't want to, like a kid, like I don't want to pick my clothes up in the morning, right? Like you can't just be in the innocent and the flow all the time. But structure is so important, right? Because if you put in the routine and the structure, then within that you can have like the creation and the the joy and like the play in it. Is that what you're talking about? Like,
Yes,
yeah.
it's a part of it. It's one ingredient. Yes.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, if go further on what you were asking, because that's kind of what I was getting
Yeah.
from it.
No, no, but
Yeah.
continue with that chain of thought.
Yeah, because I think like a lot of people are one like hands off with children, and they think like, oh, if I say too much, I'm gonna contain them. And some kids need that. Some kids need like the rebellion. Like we as adults need the rebellion phase too, like where I don't want to listen to anyone. I'm just gonna do it my own way. Like, we just want to do it our own way, and we learn from our mistakes and our failures that way. But you're still forming structures and boundaries in that because you're like, okay, well, I tried that and that didn't work. And now I'm going to ask for help, or now I'm going to like try a different path. Or you can like listen and like take the structure and keep going that way. But I think both get you to the same place, essentially.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like how do you avoid a narcissism in your journey to establish maybe um, um, thinking the world of yourself. You know what I mean? Because we want to. I learned now after like 27, 28 years of straightforward doing art. I mean, I did poetry and music all my life, but
Yeah.
art was more like the newcomer, the new kid in town within me. It was like I want to rave about myself,
Mm.
not in front of you, maybe, Maybe yes, but mostly to hear myself speak to myself and say, I'm actually doing better than I think I am. And we need that kind of self kindness. And so, how do we perform that, especially when we're out there interacting without coming across that we're just like loving ourselves to death and too busy with titling ourselves?
I think that's a fine line. I mean, there's no like too much self love. I think
How
narcissists.
important do you think it is?
I think it's really important. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't do that. Like I don't do it enough. I don't show myself enough. I don't bring myself out. Like that's something I need to bring out more. But I do think there's always there's a spectrum, right? And I always see like this is like a whole thing, but like I always see like narcissism is like one end of like a spectrum of like self-esteem. They're both coming out of like not fully feeling compensated in a way, right? So you're overcompensating or you're the other way and you're like undercompensating, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to show anyone. Or
And what is the face of middle ground then?
middle ground is
And
like,
what kind of a face does it show?
that's a good question. I'm like kind of not sure about that. I think middle ground is more, you don't need to prove yourself. It's not coming out of like a proving place, right? So it's not like, oh, I have to do this because I need to show and I need to show up and
But it's so
everything.
temporary, though.
It's happening. It is
It's just
temporary.
going like this,
But I wouldn't say like the way that you're talking about it. I don't think you're coming from a narcissistic place. I think you're coming from a proud place. And narcissism is like a
But
little,
how? I mean, more how it's perceived in the eyes of the others, more like
I mean,
it.
that's their interpretation.
Yeah, but how much do we need to pay attention to it? It is important to pay
Yeah,
attention because this is a token of our showing people the regard, and the respect, maybe.
it's true. I think it's just like people are going to interpret how they want to interpret. But I definitely think there's like I just want to clarify because like narcissism is like actually like
In
a
many degrees,
psychological
yeah,
thing.
yes,
Yeah,
and
there's
maybe,
many
but
degrees in that. And I don't think if you're coming from a place of pride and wanting to show yourself and putting yourself out there, people are going to judge because I think a lot of people don't do that. And so they're going to think that you're always like talking about yourself or doing this and maybe you're trying to like really advance your career. Um and it's all fine lines. It just depends on the person and everything.
yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Yo, buddy. We're gonna be recording in the other room soon,
Okay.
so we're gonna need to. I might have to come in and say, "Hey, brother, we might need to wrap up because I can hear the bleed through the wall." I'm so sorry.
So can just kind of take it?
Continue and wrap up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
'Cause
We'll be very mindful of it.
No worries.
Good to
Did
see
you
you.
do the pen artwork? Did you do one of the pieces out here?
Yeah, this main wall.
Those really colorful ones on the right side.
Oh,
No, the other one is still to come.
but these are beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your work is fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's whisper because
Okay.
speaking of narcissism, we don't want to wake up the
The other talk
the
show
neighborhood
going on.
bear. But I was thinking more like, I found out by accident that I have to utilize my acting skills, which I have exactly none, and find myself maybe worshiping the moment when I'm me, myself, and I in the studio. And I couldn't believe how far I can push it.
Hmm.
When I tried, I realized that I remember one day I was doing something and then I had too many brushes in my hand. So I put one in my mouth and I ended up realizing that it's been in my mouth for about 15 minutes. I kind of forgot. And I was continuing to paint and all this. And when I looked at what I did for those 15 minutes, I realized that I actually did an improvement. I improved.
Hmm.
And I immediately associated it with the fact that I had a brush in my mouth. But then, in order to be intentional in the future to utilize it, I did that with a one addition to think that I am a painter and to
Hmm.
believe that I'm a painter, just like you see in the movies with the posture and the thing and the palette and the hair, which I'm not. I don't do that. But I utilize that in addition to distracting myself because it's a head game. And when you distract
Um,
yourself, you clean the surface from all these obstacles that you wish for them not to be there to begin with, as if it's actually happening on its own behalf, because it picks up the gestures that you're sending forth. And therefore suddenly you realize that you don't really have to toil so much. The ground is clear.
mhm.
And you losing those excuses not to embark more frequently and more often. So acting was always, now since those moments, a great tool. Pretending, head games. It's like unbelievable. I don't know if you can relate to that or ever use that, but it's incredible.
No.
And with kids, it's super effective.
Oh yeah. I think you should try an apple on your head
Yeah.
and see if you can balance it while you paint.
and, and and the brush. Maybe I should do this. So
Oh, here. Yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah.
I mean, all the tools that we can create for ourselves, it's all legitimate. It's all open
Yeah.
to capitalize on it. And with kids, we can actually implement things that later on we can take it because we gain that sensation and see what we can do with it.
Oh yeah. I think that's like a good, like you're learning as you learn how to work with them.
Yeah. And society sometimes can be a very threatening chunk of mystery,
Uh-huh.
or however one can say, for lack of a better word. And it just like the promise for a better world and better, kind of more stable reality. I don't know,
Mhm.
what am I talking about now? Because you see how
I
everything changed when we started kind of.
yeah. No comment.
So working with kids shortens your expectation slash aspiration on how things should be and what to expect from the future, if at all you can relate to such thing called future.
I think it just makes me more accepting because everyone's so different and unique. And I'm like, okay, if that's how you do it and that's how you want to do it, that's fine. Um, and then I always have to have like structure. So it's like as long as we follow through, as we complete, if this is how you feel like expressing yourself, is this is how, and I think the more accepting you are of others, you can be more accepting of yourself as well. Like and I think like there's like a humor in it all too, which I think is like there's like a joy to it, but then there's like a humor with it all because it's just like, yeah, we can get more ridiculous. We can get more fun. Like we can get more wild with the ideas. And I don't know. I'm a big advocate for like children. But I also think like children should come back to workplaces. Like why are children separate from society? Why are they not in work with us? Why are they not part of the business meetings and giving ideas, even if they're ridiculous? Like you almost need that. What's that word? It's like a caco cacophone. You almost need that like off noise or that off sound to pull you out of something so serious. And I think like the seriousness is really like the destruction of humanity. Because seriousness is where ego comes in. Seriousness is where um like narcissism comes in because it's like it's prioritizing importance versus like presence, right? So if you're like in the moment and you're like going and you're happy and you're flowing with it, seriousness kind of comes down as like, oh, but this is like a more important task or this is a more important conversation. And this is because it's serious and it's an adult thing. And it's, and that kind of throws off the whole flow of life. Like if you were to operate in flow, maybe that's not as serious right now. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
What about boundaries when we deal with kids? I mean, obviously boundaries are important, even though we want to give them their voice
Yeah.
and their independence, and and that which will prolong their that period of innocence. um I remember my sister. I come from a Waldorf family. My sister
Mm.
and my niece and nephew, they're like a pure product of a Waldorf, kindergarten through high school. Now my niece is actually an instructor, and my sister is top notch. And she used to. I remember when they were like 6, 7, 8, something like that. And I was visiting in Israel, and she said, "Look, look, look, look at him! Look at Daniel." He was like she caught him with his mouth open, gazing into the void. He said, "If he was in public school, I would get a phone call telling me that something's wrong with
Mm.
my kid. At this age, it looks like, I'm sorry to use the word retard. Something needs to be addressed here in that matter. And I couldn't quite grasp what she was talking about until I did. And it all just dawned on me all at once, scared me to death. And now when I visit public schools,
I just want to let you know we're starting in the other room.
yeah, yeah, we're good. Yeah, thank you. I don't even know where it's coming from. And I realize we know the importance of boundaries. How and where and on the basis of what do we place them?
Yeah.
Just kind of the right amount, so to speak. If it all that is possible.
Boundaries have been a difficult one for me, and it's a fine line because, like, you want to give people the freedom to fully express and be themselves, and then you also need to reel them in, and you need to know when. And that takes time to learn. And I think boundaries is something that all adults go throughout life. Is okay, maybe that pushed my boundaries, or like that's something I don't want to deal with anymore. And then with children, it's like, yeah, when you work in classrooms and stuff, it's setting up structure, expectations, boundaries, and anything you don't mention, it goes back on you. If you
Yeah.
don't remind them, it goes back on you. But I take that as life. Like if I have a roommate that doesn't like respect me or that is frustrating me, did I ask them to clean up? No. So can I be mad at them for not cleaning up? Did we talk about the expectations in the place? Like it's the same thing in life. And then you just kind of learn there's some people that don't respect boundaries. There's some people that aren't. And then you learn how to navigate within that. Sometimes it's power plays. Sometimes it's innocence where people aren't aware of it. So I think with kids, it's been like I've definitely learned how to bring boundaries to the table and what I want and how to get the outcome I want. But again, it's like some structure with freedom in it too. Of like,
So what does it spell for you on the surface to be focused, to be like crystal clear with yourself? Whether it's things relating to your own journey or
yeah,
the journey of others, like in your case would be kids, but also to the world. You're going to show your work here at
yeah.
LTV. People are going to see it, and they're going to. What do you expect them to feel? What do you expect them to think? And does it really matter how close it is to reality and how close it is to what you and how you feel about it?
It's really funny because like I do a lot of abstract stuff and people actually pick up on what I'm going through at the time. And I've been so like secretive with my emotions that it's kind of freaky when people are like, "Oh, this feels like this and this," but there's been like strife, and I'm like, "Whoa, yeah." And I don't even realize what I'm painting at the time, and then like how that people are able to interpret exactly what's going on. It's like this kind of voice that I haven't been able to communicate out, but then people find it in the pieces. So I don't know. I don't have expectations. I think like my work is very joyful. Um, like there's a lot of movement and like play in it, and there's also like sensuality, there's also like spirituality, and I don't know, it's just interesting too because when I look at what people are drawn to, everyone's drawn to something different in my art, and there's different moods, but some people are really drawn to like the moodier, the breakup pieces, the intense ones, and they might be like going through that in their time. So they're like, "Oh, I love this." It's like it's funny what people are interested in. Ah,
We're starting to roll.
okay,
Am
cutting up.
are we disturbing you?
Yeah, yeah. I told you we can hear the
Oh
bleed.
shit.
Yeah,
Oh man,
that's what I was saying. Yeah,
you hear the mics or
yeah.
our
We
voices?
hear the voices. Yeah,
Hmm.
Really? Even though we're
yeah,
whispering.
yeah. We need dead quiet on
Um.
that on the second.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I gotcha.
okay.
I gotcha.
I can't believe this is happening.
All right.
Wait, let me see one second. What is going on here? I can't believe this is happening. Well, well, I guess we're gonna conclude it for now, and then maybe later on today we'll do another show, like a full show.
Okay,
Is that?
that works.
I mean, maybe we can just wait until they're done. It's half hour,
Yeah, let's do
and
that.
then okay.
Yeah,
Good. Well,
good
I love
coffee.
it when you agree on things like that. So we'll be back, and just to remind you, this segment is going to be used. It's June 6th, year 2024 here with the Lolo Show. And Mariah Keolani is here with us, and we're going to continue. Makes it things are getting better by the second.